It says we're live, so we'll check it. Got a little refresh. Okay. All right. Okay. Here we go. Let's welcome some people while we wait for people to get into the room. I don't know why people wait to see it. I've done this. I probably presented this more than a few times. Um, I was gonna do it fresh, but the thing is, since I've already done the Mouse Utopia and the seed cycle, what I think I'll do, I'll just share it. I'll play it from my own video, and we'll kind of go at it what 1.25. I think 1.25 will be fine. It's about maybe like a little over 10 minutes. And go since I've already presented it, just go ahead and share it and present it, and then I'll show you some other things because I did some other things from Tragedy and Hope and see why, and we'll see how it goes because actually we're going to do this um, from this perspective. We're also going to center on South Korea because that is where it's most obvious about the demographic cycle and the Mouse Utopia and its effects. How this how the when you change the environment, you change the people, you change the demographic. Okay, you change the shape of the demographics and the population. So we're going to show that. We're going to show the Mouse Utopia video first. Um, since I've already done it, instead of me trying to cobble it together fresh, show it that way, and then we'll go through some other things, and we'll kind of bring it all together so you guys get a clear picture. Normally, this would be a Patreon video. Okay, I've done this for Rhymes Group. Um, I think I might have done this on the Patreon. Normally, this would be a Patreon video because this is like behind the wall knowledge. This is really higher level knowledge because in fact, it was Sandog, because Sandog's in the Arabian. He's on the Arabian Horn, right? He's in the Arabian coast, and he does logistics. And his thing is getting things shipped in and out, right? And he talked about this demographic cycle and how it's tied to development and modernization, right? And you got people, higher level people that are like millionaires and billionaires nodding their heads, like, yeah, we know it, we see it already, we know what you're talking about. So this stuff is a step above what most of the stuff that I present. So um, and you probably, well, I know you won't see it anyplace else because ain't nobody at this level talking about it. Okay, the only two people that are at this level talking about it are me and the nameless protagonist. So this is like Brookings Institute, DOD level, World Economic Forum level stuff, right? This is stuff they talk about. Okay, and this is the stuff that I've talked about since 2012. Yeah, 2012. Yeah, 2012. With my original YouTube channel, and I did it for a brother that was in Korea. In Korea, as a matter of fact, um, he's part of the DoD. So I did it for him because he asked me because he was showing it to people, and the thing is he was explaining it to people, but the thing is he needed visuals. You know, military people are visual; they need charts. So I developed some charts for him. So I'm gonna share this. I'm gonna share the video, and then I'm gonna show you some of my old PDFs. A lot of like the PDFs I'm going to actually show you are probably at least a little over 10 years old. So it's how long I've you know been displaying this stuff. Let me greet somebody. Little Rock, Ben, Joe's, Craig, Cool Gamer, Jay, Brandon, Matt, Excalibur, what's up, man? TJ, Jegna, what's up? I hope so. Lakers in 6. There's Toya. Got to write this stuff down, Toya, because this will be the probably and save this stuff because this will be the last time I probably put this one up on YouTube. Okay, if I do this again, it's going to be on Patreon. I won't be here. Forever Blessed, what's up? Harvest, Jay Foreign, I'm listening. What's up, man? Aaron, Big Sleeveless. Okay. And Jeff. Hey, Jeff, what's up, man? Ain't seen Jeff in a minute. All right. Here we go. I've already done the seed cycle, so I'm going to share my video on the seed cycle. Let me go ahead and put it into full screen. And I will share the seed cycle video, and then we'll get started. Demographics is destiny, and unfortunately, it is. I'll pull it all together. First, I'm going to do this. This will give you kind of like an overview of the seed cycle and how it fits with the demographics, and then I'll give you a little further stuff, and then we will give you an overview, and we actually start pulling all this stuff together. So here we go. See where do I want myself? Put me down here, and we'll start it up. The clip that you just heard was from John Calhoun's Mouse Utopia, and from Nicole Ali's video on the subject. And what had interested me was what John Calhoun called the seed cycle, which was strive, exploit, equalize, and die. Got to know something about John Calhoun. John Calhoun was not studying rats or mice specifically. He was trying to put rats and mice in human conditions to see if there were some similarities between mice or any other population of creatures, which mice are the closest, easier to control, and humans, if you put them in the same conditions. And what he found out was there are direct parallels to what the rats and mice went through, or what they went through as far as generations, and what you see in human conditions. So the seed cycle that we're looking at, that you're observing, do line up with the demographic cycle. And in comparison with the 4 cycles, expanding is strive, which is your pre-industrial. Exploit is the second stage of expanding, which is industrializing, or the exploitive stage. Equalize is when a society is fully industrialized and stationary. Obviously, the die phase is the contraction phase, which is post-industrial. This is the demographic transition. Expanding, first one is pre-industrial, expanding. High birth rate, rapid fall in each upward age, your high deaths, short life expectancy. This is your pre-industrial. Your industrializing is your second phase, which is we call the transitional, or the exploitive phase. High birth rate, fall in death rate as more people live to middle age, slightly longer life expectancy. This is where you get your boom. Industrialize is your equalization phase. Declining birth rate, low death rate, more people live to old age. And the last one, your post-industrial, or your D phase, low birth rate, low death rate, higher dependency ratio, longer life expectancy. But you also have a contraction in your population as the less and less babies are being born. As John Calhoun actually found during strive, even though he had a high birth rate, he also had a high death rate. And you see it in the initial phase, initial strive phase, where the population actually went down. So it does actually match what Calhoun was talking about. Your exploit phase, which is the first one. Higher birth rate, falling death rate, as your population booms. In other words, if you have more babies and keep the people that are born alive longer, your population is going to blow up. It's going to boom. Low death rate, high birth rate is an exploitive phase, or population boom. Equalize, or stationary, which Calhoun said was the longest phase. And so far, our equalized phase has been since the since like the mid 1960s. We have our equalized phase where the birth rates have been fairly low. And what you have as far as population growth is what they call demographic momentum, where more people are having babies, you're just not having as many as the birth rate falls. Say declining birth rate, low death rate, more people living to old age. And this is the contraction phase. Very low birth rate, still a low death rate. But as these people die out, the actual population of the society actually starts to plummet. You're actually seeing that in Greece. You see it in South Korea. You definitely see it in Japan. Starting to see it in China. in a lot of your Asian countries. You also see it in Europe, even though Europe is trying to battle it, where they're in a decline, where you actually see some of these shapes, especially when they can't bring in more people and they can't keep the birth rates quite up. The reason this is important, and this has come from Tragedy and Hope, and I've shown this many times. Actually, I discovered this back in 2012, 2011, 2012. A friend of mine in the DOD asked me to actually put this in a chart. So I did, and this is your demographic cycle and why it's important. What you need to concentrate on are these two cycles, the B and the D. And the reason you need to concentrate on these two cycles is because of mainly this for the men, arms-bearing men. Arms-bearing men, or especially arms-bearing youth, either overtake a neighboring population or they could actually even revolt on their own, which we did see the turmoil of the 1960s is because of these people, because of the arms-bearing years. And normally what a rising population will do is actually overtake or absorb a falling one. We saw that happen in the 15th and 16th century with Europe, where Europe had a B cycle, which is a boom, and started to overtake the rest of the world. And the rest of the world's, according to Carol Quigley, most of the societies were already advanced or declining. So a B cycle will always overtake and dominate a dying one or a falling one, a declining one, which is why most populations or most societies want to stay in this one, which is a C cycle. Now, this is also from Tragedy and Hope. This is the diffusion of the demographic cycle. Notice the B cycles that we've outlined. Notice the B cycles. The B cycles point to domination. Whenever you have a B cycle, especially a one coming out of a pre-industrial cycle into a B cycle, they always start to dominate. The British first, which is Western Europe, the French second, which is also Western Europe, and then these are the Germans and the Eastern Europeans. The Eastern Europe is the Soviets. Notice the second half of the B cycle, they start to dominate. These are the Soviets. And this down here, the second half of the B cycle is Asia. And guess who's in the D cycles? They're having problems right now, staving off China. These are the people right here in the D cycle, which is Europeans, including the United States, trying to stave off these folks, which is Asia. The Koreans, the Chinese, people in Singapore, or they're in the D cycle trying to stave off people that are in the B cycle. This is why it's important. This is why they're importing people trying to keep the numbers up, especially the number of babies are up, because this is something that if there is a behavioral sink, you have to bring in fresh blood from the outside, from people that have not been inside the society long enough to actually pick up their behavioral trait. Normally, after 1 or 2 generations, they fall back into it. In the United States, what kept the birth rates up for so long were immigrants, Latin American immigrants that were just industrializing. And the first or maybe even second generations, they would have 3, 4, 5 children. The birth rates were fairly high. And then over time, as the second and third generations were born in, they became part of the D cycle, which is we call the behavioral sink. So at the end of the day, this is just a cycle that people have noticed over the past, let's say, a couple hundred years. Because before the Industrial Revolution, you didn't see it quite like this. And the Industrial Revolution kind of accelerated and made these patterns more noticeable. So this is what Calhoun was trying to figure out, or Calhoun was trying to experiment with, because this was actually necessary, because this is how you set policy. We're in the middle of what we call a behavioral sink, where if you look at it, most guys aren't getting married. It's not just here, it's in the United States, but also all over the world. The high out of wedlock birth rate, the falling birth rates, the failure of men and women to actually get together, the hikikomori in Japan, or the rice eaters that don't even come out of their houses or come out of the room sometimes, kind of isolate themselves and basically get their female companionship from anime and online girlfriends and stuff like that. Same thing with guys here falling in love with their dating apps and let that pass for relationships. The rise of what we call incels, even though I don't think they're incels, I think they're voluntarily celibate. But this is just a sign of the times. This is just a pattern. Now it's extreme because it's happening throughout most of the world instead of just in pockets. But let me say this, a lot of people put things onto different experiments and different models that people didn't say. These are just parallels. Nobody actually knows exactly what the end game of these particular patterns are, because it's never happened before. And Calhoun was just trying to get some insight to see if it was just a human thing or this is a biological thing. Turns out it's a biological thing that nobody understands. Now, will humans go to zero? No. Will they completely reduce down to a point where it makes it more difficult to maintain your infrastructure, say, in a given society? Well, that one nobody knows, but I kind of doubt it. But the thing is, it will recede. But the biggest problem is really isn't whether humans will go extinct or society will decline to a point where they can't maintain their culture. What normally happens is that a bigger culture, a growing culture, will actually push in and start to absorb them, and that's the biggest fear in any one of these different scenarios. How do you maintain your population, keep from being overrun and taken over? Happened with Rome. Happened in Europe over various societies. Happened in Eastern Europe when the Russians actually got to a bigger point and actually overwhelmed most of their region. It's happening right now in Asia with Chinese. So this is why demographics is so important, and this is how we brought this up, because these patterns are here. Whether we like them or not, they're here. They're obvious. They're throughout all biology. Now, how do we prevent it? How do we encourage a way to actually get around the pattern? So far, they haven't. They can't keep the birth rate up. They can't encourage men and women to get together and have families. In some cases, they've done the opposite. That's actually encourage the parents not to have kids. But the thing is, at the end of the day, the pattern is a pattern. What the result of the pattern is, we don't know. But this is why we're going through the places where population is falling and they're sticking to their same old cultural practices that may or may not work anymore, so that we can get some insight into our own problems here in the United States in the Black community. Sometimes you got to bring a book to the book. But with that, I'm gonna jump off here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.
것이냐. 얘기하신 바와 같이 너희가 반여성이다라고 이런 식으로 결국 낙인을 찍어버리니까 결국 이게 점점 싸움이 되는 거죠.
What is behind the hostility towards feminism?
I wonder if you can hear it. Okay. Can you hear? You can hear me. Can you hear the? You hear this?
페미니즘이 백래시를 겪고 있는 건 여성들이 더 많은 권력을 쟁취하고 있기 때문이라고 생각합니다.
And what direction will it take the country?
서로 이해하면 좋겠다라는 바람이 이루어지기는 너무나 힘든 거죠.
We'll play a little bit of it.
활동들을 대외적으로는 하고 있습니다.
Fire Femi Action participates in the annual Women's Day events organized by the Korean Women's Associations United. But this year's March 8th rally was different.
Now, you guys want me to run it back?
There was tension in the air.
You guys want me to run it back? Okay, what didn't you hear? Oh, you can hear the video, but not my voice. Okay. But I don't know which parts did you miss. Oh, you didn't hear any of it. Nothing after the first vid. Okay. Oh, you didn't hear me after the first vid. Okay. So you didn't catch the slide presentation. Okay, regarding the PowerPoint. Let's run through this. We'll actually run through the PowerPoint again.
A palpable anger in the rallying cries. The catalyst? The government's plan to do away with the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. The government body, founded in 2001 to address discrimination of women, has become a symbol of the gender war brewing in South Korea.
사실 지금 여가부 폐지를 해서 그 인구, 가족, 양성평등본부로 만들겠다고 했잖아요.
그마저도 유일하게 있었던 그 여성이라는 이름도 그 이름마저도 아예 사라진다는 것이 앞으로의 정치 기조를 보여주는 액션이라는 생각이 많이 들고 그거를 되게 일관되게 윤석열이 후보 시절부터 하고 있는 거고.
A year ago, conservative candidate Yoon Suk-yeol won a tight contest for the presidency, beating his opponent Lee Jae-myung by a slim margin of less than 1% of votes. While campaigning, President Yoon had taken aim at feminism, blaming it for the country's low birth rate. Many feared his victory will roll back the strides taken towards gender equality. Strides that were made following a gruesome crime 7 years ago.
그 2016년 5월 17일 날에 강남역에서 한 여성분이 살해를 당했는데 강남역 근처에 있는 화장실에서 살해를 당하셨고 그 당시 가해자가 여성이라서 죽였다라는 말을 했고 그래서 관련해서 많은 여성분들이 여성이라서 죽었다, 여자라서 죽었다, 그리고 오늘도 살아남았다 이런 이야기를 하기 시작하면서
All right.
Today, all that remains of the crime scene location is a construction site. To be clear, the outcry against the sexual harassment of women had already been building in Korea.
No
But
crack
this
shoe.
heinous murder broke the levee. Cultural critic Jung Dok-hyun studies and writes about social shifts in the country.
그게 아주 촉발점이 됐죠. 그 전까지는 이렇게 수면 아래에 있었던, 그러니까 여성들이 사실 가장 간단한 얘기잖아요. 그냥 밤거리를 이렇게 그냥 걸어가는 게 안전하지가 않다. 이게 뭔가
All right. We'll go back to the go back to the slides. Since you guys didn't hear the first one, okay? Let's go back to so you guys didn't see this part. So you guys didn't get this or didn't hear it. Okay, I was saying this is something I did back in 2012, 2013 for a guy in the DOD. It's out of the Quigley's Tragedy and Hope. Now you've seen the demographic cycle, okay? I actually explained it in the first video about the demographic cycle, how it compares to Mouse Utopia. Also the B cycles. When civilizations, when certain societies take over the civilization, with the English first, then the French under Napoleon, and then the Germans, and then the Soviets, but the Soviets also with the Americans. And now after the year 2000, as Quigley probably predicted, would be the rise of Asia or China that we're seeing right now. Okay, the development sequence, which is the Western development sequence, right? That developed out of Western Europe, right? Western ideology, that's the Christianity, the Catholic faith, that kind of stuff, right? With a mix of the Mediterranean, the old Mediterranean civilization. So Western ideology came first, weapons came next, agriculture, the machines and the Industrial Revolution, and then because of the rise of the cities, you needed a way to keep people alive, which is sanitation and medicine. Okay, because you had these big cities, we call urban centers. You need a way to move away waste. And then you had a demographic explosion, keeping people alive. You have a high birth rate because of the food. And then to move people out and move goods and services, you had to have transportation and communications, right? Okay, what Quigley was saying is that other parts of the world got these Western development out of order. Okay, like say in Asia, weapons came first, right? Fight your enemies. How to move goods. Okay, transportation and communication, right? United States did some of the same things. Okay, then they got since they had the urban centers, sanitation and medicine. And then the machines when they could afford them, right? After that, they got what? The demographic explosion, and then agriculture, and then what came next? What comes last, right? If you get these six, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the seventh, right? Which is feminism, which is the social contract and stuff like that, right? You get it out of order. I don't know if I should show you the other one, just real quick, because you've seen this before. So, um, where is it at? Right there. All right. Okay. This is some of the things that happen, right? Especially in another countries. Asia is really tight because it's patriarchy, right? Same thing with Greece, really tight. So what's prevented is the out of wedlock birth rate. Okay, but in other countries, say like Colombia, like Latin America, like Western Europe, like even some parts of Africa. Somebody was telling me in Kenya, what's happening is the out of wedlock birth rate is rising because guess what? They're developing. I think I showed you this. Um, as far as the seed cycle, right? Pre-industrial revolution, guess what happened, right? The fertility rates are high. Look at the GDP, very low. But as the GDP rises, as you develop, what happens? This goes down. Fertility rate goes down. Marriage goes down. Okay, you start having problems with marriages. You have the marriage age actually goes up. Okay, feminism. Guess when feminism started? Right, the first iteration of feminism. Guess what it was? 1804. During the Industrial Revolution, the Industrial Revolutionary cycle, Western ideology started creeping in. Okay, this is the feminism is an effect and not a what cause. You seen this? The four cycles. I always notice the shape, right? You can tell. Like I said, you can tell where you are in a stage by what? The shape. As we go up, guess what? As you develop, what happens? Look at all these countries that develop. But the thing is, look at Russia, right? when the Soviet Union blew up, guess what happened? Okay, out of wedlock birth rate went down. Unless you have a high patriarchal culture like say Japan, right, where it never moved. But look at the rest of them, right? Western Europe, Spain, France, Japan, right? And Russia's the only one that went up and came down. Why did it come down? Because the Soviet Union blew up and its GDP went down. Guess what happened? It's live births outside of marriage. Women are having the fewest children. Korea was the third. Now they're the first. They're the lowest. Um, blow that up a little bit. You can actually see it 1920. Okay, the marriage and divorce rate in Sweden, right? As they develop, look what happened. As you go into the stabilized phase and go into post-industrial phase, look what happens to your marriage rate. Look at look at the divorce rate go up. It looks just like the United States. Looks just like the United States. The marriage ratio, the divorce ratio. Okay, all this stuff. And guess what you have to do to stabilize your population? What is the United States doing? Immigrating people. Keep your population up. Yeah, that is total fertility rate. South Korea, look. What year is that? 1960. Look at this. 1960. The fertility rate is 6. 6 per woman in 1960. By 2016, it's almost 1. By 2020 is what? Under 1. Okay? In 60 years. 60 years, they went from this. Look at this. You can see the shape. Let's let it move, right? They went from that pre-industrial to looking like Japan. They went from agrarian to post-industrial in 60 years because you changed the environment. This is what it's supposed to look like. This is what they're supposed to like. That's why they actually import people, right? Because they want a C cycle, a C shape. Even though it's post-industrial, they want to stabilize form. This is what it looks like when it's stabilized. This is what it looks like when you can't import enough people. Okay, that's what happens. We're not having enough babies. You have to import people to keep this stabilized form. Like I said, this is 1960 Korea, right? This is what they look like now. This is what they're going to look like in 2030. This is what they look like right now, right here. That's why they're trying to force people to have babies. But that is the mouse utopia. That's the seed cycle. That's why demographics are important. That's like you almost can predict exactly what's going to happen to a population by looking at those shapes, right? And if you know what's behind the shapes, okay, which is industrializing, you can predict what's going to come next. And with the internet and with the communications, as they get communications, guess what happens? They start to emulate what the West is doing. That's how come in South Africa. In South Africa, the out of wedlock birth rate is what, 60? Okay, 60, because they're part of the BRICS. South Africa is part of the Asian, the Russian Asian alliance. Okay, so they're getting more development a lot faster. That's how come their out of wedlock birth rate is 60. Just like black folks back in I would say the 1980s, 1980s, 1970s. Okay, late 70s, early 80s, right? They're where black folks are then, right? Kenya, that's developing, right? The out of wedlock birth rate is 30, up from, I think it used to be in the teens, maybe like 12, 13%. Now it's 30. You see the same thing. That's where the Mouse Utopia experiment and how it relates to the demographic cycle. So I wanted to show you. Look what South Korea was, and has nothing to do with liberal culture, because South Korea is not liberal. It's a very strict patriarchal culture. But guess what? It doesn't matter, does it? When you change the environment, you change the women. When you change the environment, you change the women, you change the people. So they're getting the same kind of radical feminism that you saw like in the 1970s, 1980s in South Korea, in a very highly patriarchal structure, highly patriarchal society, to the point where they're not having children anymore. They had a whole election because they're not having kids. So, in other words, I'll start taking questions. That is it in a nutshell. Okay. And trust and believe, I get reports about this like at least at least once a week. Okay, yeah, I see it in Africa. Yeah, I see it in Latin America. Yeah, I see it in Asia. Yeah, we're having problems over here in Korea. Yeah, in China, there's something going on. They have to change the laws. Okay, I see this a lot. I read about this stuff in Europe all the time. The stuff that's going on in Europe. You know, one thing I did find out, if I can find it, because I don't have it. I don't have it for. I do have it. I don't. You know, I don't. I probably can't find it. Okay. Uh, see if I can find it. It's a pyramid. I think I saved it. Let me see if I saved it. See if it's in my pictures. See if it popped up. Okay, there it is. And this is something This is something that I also noticed with this with white folks, not necessarily United States period, but white people. Okay, this is something that people are aware of. Okay, uh, pictures. Where is it at? There it is. This is what they call a death cross. Okay, this is what they call a decline. This is something that Calhoun talked about in the uh, in the Mount Utopia. It's also something that they talk about as D cycle, right? Your downward spiral, right? It's a death cross. Okay, when you have less babies and more deaths, we have more deaths than babies. That is a death cross, right? And that was it 2020? Uh, in 2020, South Korea has what they call a death cross. Okay, very few societies actually recover from that. Okay, guess when the United States white people actually had their death cross? Give me a guess. When do you think that was? When do you think that was? When he had a death cross? If I wish I had it. I don't think I have it in my pictures. Uh, but the United States white population death crosses in 2014. They had they had more white deaths and less white births in 2014. They've already reached their death cross, which is why they're so adamant about importing people. Number one, they're so adamant about restricting um, birth control and abortion, and getting ready to try to take back no fault divorce. What they're trying to do is strip away all those rights they gave the women because of this, because they see the writing on the wall, and it's not just here. I'm sure if you isolated for white population in Europe, you probably see the exact same thing. South Korea has already reached theirs, right? Very few societies that has ever come back from a population death cross like that. It's almost you almost never pull out of that. And if the demographic cycle actually holds the way Quigley says it's going to hold, guess what's going to happen? This population will go from being white to Latino within probably about 40 years. So this is why the demographic cycle and this kind of stuff is actually important. That's why the Mount Utopia experiment was actually important. Okay, was the one accurate experiment that actually shows approximately what's going to happen in an urban environment in a post-industrial environment. So now we're into post-industrial, post-modern, and it's not just here. Even though we think that it's original here, it's not just here. It's all over the world. Every place where this kind of Western technology lands, this is what you're going to get. Africa is probably the last place for it to land. They're just starting to develop. But the thing is, you're already seeing the problems wind up in Africa. Well, it depends. Okay, it could be the worst. It might be too little too late. We don't know because it's never been done before. Never been done before. But unless you guys got questions, I am going to go ahead and roll out. If you guys got questions, let me thank a few people. Rashad, thank you. KT, no sound. uh, Judas, thank you. And Supreme, thank you. Okay, somebody said dollar drop because I'm on mute. Well, anyway, basically, um, you seen the slides. I kind of explained what the slides are. I kind of explained the demographic cycle in like a shorthand. Okay, there's more to it than that. Um, but this is a shorthand, and it gives you kind of like an idea of not only where to look, but also what to actually look out for. Okay, so when you see this stuff coming in from overseas, you can tell exactly what's getting ready to happen. Feminism is in Brazil, it's in Colombia, it's in Latin America. Has it reached the stage of where we're at now? No. The thing, it's coming. You can hear them. Okay, you can hear them demand rights. You can see the out of wedlock birth rates go up. Now, what Quigley did say is that depending on what your base culture is, okay, it's going to look a little different than the culture that you're already in. So, like United States feminism is not the same as European feminism, like say in Sweden or Norway or even Germany or France, okay, or even Greece. Okay, not going to be the same. Feminism in Russia is not going to be the same as feminism in the United States or Canada. Even U.S. Feminism and Canadian feminism is different. It's different. It's similar, but it's different. It's more radical in Canada because there's a smaller population. Black folks have not hit a death cross yet because black folks have a higher fertility rate. So as far as they're concerned, they haven't hit a death cross yet. At least I haven't seen it. White folks have had a lower fertility rate than black folks has. White folks had a low fertility rate starting, I think it's 1965 or so, and they've been pretty consistent at I think 1.5, 1.4, 1.5. So black folks, until recently um, had a very stabilized fertility rate, like 2 point something. So black folks, I think it was 20, like in the mid odds, like 2007, when black folks actually dipped below 2. So black folks are still like 1.7, 1.8. So they haven't hit a death cross yet. I don't know if Pookie's, well, yeah, not really. The thing is, really, if really was holding black women's fertility rate, because black women have a 30% a higher fertility rate than white folks. And what's really holding black fertility back is abortion. 42% of all pregnancies by black women are actually aborted. That's the problem with black folks. Like only 13% of the 13%. I think it's 15% of, of black children actually born inside wedlock. You have like a 42% out of wedlock birth rate, and you got a 42% abortion rate. So 40% of your pregnancies are actually ended by abortion in Black America. That's the problem. The highest abortion rate, really the highest abortion number in the country. Nobody else is even close. Half of your abortions are done by black women in the country. Nobody's even close. According to Calhoun, it's inevitable. It's just a matter of when. That's why you see this big push to import people. That's why you see this big push to immigrate people, especially immigrate children. It's because of that. It's because of demographics. That's like when you see this big push to import people from other countries into Europe. Europe pushing back now is because there's probably too many. The society is starting to change. They're trying to hold on to their white values, but it's kind of hard when you have so many people coming in. Because I think Biden was talking about it. You've already reached less than 50% white folks in the United States, according to Biden. He might be wrong. Yeah, 42%. If I can find it, I'll show it to you. I don't have it in front of me. Not as much as you think. Not as much as you think. Yeah, I wish it was Bay kids. The highest rise in out of wedlock birth rate is actually um, women in their 30s. and most of those women are actually have jobs or they're educated. Just like people like Ebony Williams that froze her eggs, that are waiting till they get their man and until they get about 30, 40, and said, I'm not going to get a man, I got to have a baby. See a lot of that now. Any more questions before I bounce? Because we're right up at 58 minutes. I'm sorry about the sound. I'll try to edit that out. How likely is no fault divorce get repealed? I don't know. That's a good question. It's in Texas right now, so that's the first test case. If I had my guess, it's probably pretty likely, but it has to go state by state. It's not a one-shot thing. It's not a Supreme Court thing. States have to adopt it. And I'm too lazy to make kids. Just a MGTOW brother that enjoys his own company. I'll leave it to at Be About Peace. The thing is, MGTOW is part of the Mouse Utopia, man. In fact, there's more men actually going MGTOW, if not going monk. They're going MGTOW without being MGTOW. 1885. What is 1885? I don't understand. Yeah, Rihanna's having kids out of wedlock. They're making it normal. Well, black women have always felt that way. Black women have always, even since emancipation, right? Um, Black women have always considered the family to be a woman and her kids, and a man was just extra. Black women have always felt that. If you read feminist literature, um, basically they don't consider men part of the family. They really don't. Men are just if they could get away without being shamed for having children out of wedlock, they probably would. Black women are actually socialized differently. Well, got to get out of Atlanta. Got to get out of the United States, really. Yeah, yeah. So, shout out to her. Well, she found her king, and she had money. And well, because you're fertile doesn't mean that you have to have kids. Okay. Uh, I didn't have as many as I probably should have. I don't know if that's luck or divine intervention. That's coming. I think that will happen. I think that's going to happen. That's already in the works. Um, in fact, I think it's like 4 states that have that on the books already. I said Rashad says, I think I already read that. Rashad for the Cash App. Appreciate you. Anyway, we're at an hour. And there's a lot of women out here to mate with. The thing is, there's actually more women than men. The thing is, do you want them? You can't do it that way. It has to be state by state. You can't do it federally. Yeah, I do believe that it's already coming true. I think it might have it before that. Um, Women are not changing their minds, so I think that'll happen. We're only like what 6, 7 years away. I think that's going to happen if it hasn't happened already. And if guys are really uh, not appreciate you, um, especially if the only thing that might happen that might change things around is AI coming in and taking people's jobs. If that happens, women will get scared and they might reverse course or at least adjust themselves. But the thing is, as far as having kids, that's a good question. I don't know. Uh, if if they keep up the same course, If they haven't reached it already, I think that's going to happen. Anyway, y'all, I'm gonna bounce out of here. Um, I will probably see you guys tomorrow. I think tomorrow we have to do. We're gonna be talking about it's not octanes. What is it? Somebody wanted something. Oh, MGTOW. The 4 levels of MGTOW. That's gonna be tomorrow. So look for that. So anyhow, that's my hour. Green. Let's see if Green Gorilla started up already. Let's see if Green Gorilla started up. All right, not yet. Okay, well, it should be a good one. Share screen. Should be a good one. He's coming up in like was it 3 minutes? Okay, let me go put the link in the chat. If black women were free, should be pretty good. So go check him out and give him a like. And I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow. Paste his link. There you go. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Peace out.